Welcome to the bite-sized version of Through Your Looking Glass. Here we are at SampleCon 2021. That's actually in person, live out of Pasadena, California. And I'm joined today for this session for my good friend Mario. We just literally came off a panel together talking about the future of the industry, where res tech and where media and data is going. And so I'm thrilled to be inviting my friend, colleague, and just general badass himself, Mr. Mario, to the stage. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a little surreal. We're filming in this amazing suite you have.
Well, it's like a 1932 built suite on the Huntington, the Langham here in Pasadena. So it feels very comfy, right? It's
Yeah,
like we're
I love
cool.
it. I love it.
It's very LA.
Need some cigars.
Yeah, we need some cigars and like a 3 a.m. party would be just fine, right?
Yeah, this is the after party spot.
The after party for later tonight, right?
Yeah.
Well, everyone may not know you as well as I do, so you want to do just a quick intro of who you are and how's it going down?
Yeah, so Mario Carrasco, co-founder of Think Now. Think Now, it's going to be 10 years in February. And we've evolved throughout those 10 years. Actually, when we first started, we did not want to build a panel. That was like...
Oh, it wasn't even on the
100%
on the
didn't
radar.
want to build a panel. We just started as a consultancy focused on helping companies understand multicultural consumers. So my business partner, Roy Eduardo Kokoyachuk, his background is in media research. He was a VP at Warner Brothers. I have no background in market research like most of us, right? I'm a marketer by trade, and I got into the sample industry by building what became one of the first nationally representative Hispanic panels at Garcia Research. And so that was purchased by Knowledge Networks, I think GFK, and I don't know where it is now. Ipsos maybe.
That's a great question. Where's Knowledge Networks today?
Yeah. But yeah, so I didn't go along for that ride, and that's when we co-founded Think Now. But because, people in the industry knew me as the go-to person for Hispanic sample, we built another panel. And that panel has evolved beyond US Hispanic. We're now inclusive of African American, Asian. We have several panels in Latin America now. And so, panel makes up about 50% of Think Now's revenue. The other part of it is the full service business, which is alive and well. And then we just recently launched the newest part of the business, which is Connect, which is an audience platform that's taken all the data that we've done from a thought leadership perspective the past 10 years, put it into a big data environment, made a really cool UI. So we're enabling marketers, specifically strategists, that want to do multicultural research, but that just don't have the budget and time.
Right.
They can go in, define their audience, click search, and we give them a variety of data points based on whatever inputs they have.
So this is your foray into building a technology platform,
Right.
Which would land on the res tech landscape as it evolves, and it's really meant for the media side, less the research side. So who's the primary target customer?
Yeah. So when we first launched it, it was actually, we were looking specifically at strategists at agencies. Right?
Ad agency strategist. Yep.
Ad agency strategists, which strategists are kind of the conduit between res tech and marketing, right?
Okay.
They're the most, I want to say quantitative minded, but it's the most research minded position in the ad agency world, where the strategists are either putting together pitches to win business, which increasingly needs a data component.
Yep.
So they're usually spending most of their time on Google, like searching for third-party data, saying, hey, Honda, come to our agency because US Hispanics over-index in terms of brand favorability of Honda, or whatever the case may be. So we wanted to give them a tool that made their life easier. So that was the first use case, was being able to do on-demand research without doing traditional market research. Then we realized that as strategists started to use it and build these personas over time, they were like, well, can I purchase media against it?
Right. Can I activate?
Can I activate it, right? Because once they win the business, yeah, building persona is cool. It gives them insights, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to show that they're making progress on whatever it may be, that ad campaign. So for first 2 years of the product, we were hesitant to go into that space, but once we started learning more about res tech, post cookie world, we realized we need to go into the media space. So now we're building what we're calling Connect 3.0.
Okay.
Which is
the third version.
The third version.
Version 3.
Version 3 that allows you. That's going to be able to connect into a DMP. You're able to search for Connect audiences, and the value proposition there is the same that it's been for our company and for Connect, which is being able to reach multicultural consumers. Because right now, if you look at digital platforms, the way that they're defining ethnicity, the way that they're defining gender, is just not very accurate, and so we feel like we can play in that space.
So you would become the best audience partner in a DMP if I'm looking for multicultural, which is specifically Hispanic, Black, and Asian populations.
Yeah.
And you're building. Is it a cookie pool, or tell me about your identity and how you're viewing the graph there, because that's a big issue in terms of cookieless and how people are engaging with building out audiences.
Yeah, good question. So, we have the benefit of being a full service market research side, right? On the other side.
That's right, you have that.
And so we've been collecting this data, and it actually, the data that we collected started as really just a marketing campaign, right? We wanted to put ourselves out there from a thought leadership perspective, like, what do multicultural marketers think about virtual reality? What do they think about Bitcoin? What do they think about the word Latinx, right?
That's a fun one, right?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we could spend the whole time.
Yeah,
and how to pronounce it too.
But all this data was just kind of rotting in a PDF.
Yep.
And so that was like the initial thought behind Connect, is more thought leadership, but a little bit more searchable. And then we're like, hey, we can sell this, and it started to become more of a SaaS platform. But the data that we're connecting, the way that we're able to activate that is that we have some PII, we have email,
okay,
we have IP address, we have birth date, much to the chagrin of Bob Fossen, I guess.
Yep.
We're able to get that data, and that's, we realize that that's incredibly valuable in a post-cookie world. So the way that we're doing that is, we're partnering with DMPs. They're taking our survey pool of data.
Yep.
We're using a variety of data points to create a bigger pool, and then you're able to activate that on a programmatic basis.
Digging into that audiences, traditionally on the data side, it's been a struggle to target for ethnicity of any kind, much less just age and gender.
Yeah. And
so I imagine that from an audience definition standpoint, a lot of brands are going to be interested in this in your capabilities here in the targeting.
100%, and I think we're tapping into a broader shift in marketing. Of course, all the events in 2020 has put an increased spotlight in ethnicity, but I think more broadly, good marketing is all about getting as specific as you can when you're targeting your consumer.
Okay. Specificity matters.
Specificity matters. And there's something interesting that happens with specificity, right? Like, if you think about, I don't know, your Netflix.
Or my Netflix, of course. Come on.
I don't know.
My kids are, so therefore I am.
Okay. I mean, some of the best content on Netflix, right, when you think about it, are stories that really maybe have nothing to do with our background.
Right.
But they just tell very specific stories that there's something kind of universal in specificity, and that's where marketing's going.
Yeah, I had this experience with Netflix providing this for me, because I traveled years ago to Delhi and was actually watching Netflix in Delhi. And so, of course, everything changed based upon geo-IP. Return to the US, I'm still receiving Indian-based content. And my daughter and I watched an entire series of Indian Matchmaker. Right?
I've seen that one.
Right? And and I would never in my life considered watching that show before, but it was fantastic for both of us to watch because it was a different way of dating and approach and culture, and it was
Exactly.
great. It was great.
And it's an authentic story, and I think that's where marketing is heading, right? It's
Authenticity.
Authenticity. It's not about kind of, I think mass market message has always been a myth. And I think we're really seeing that. And I think, the digital age, digital marketing, programmatic has enabled us to do personalization at scale.
Absolutely. You're so right.
And so, we're tapping into that. Our focus is ethnicity, of course. But when we're talking about ethnicity, to be frank, race is a construct, right?
It's an invented construct.
It's not a real thing. What we're really talking about is culture, right? And race is kind of the best proxy that we have for culture.
It is a proxy for culture
and shared values, and so that's what we're getting at, and that's what the tool gets at. And I think there's a real pent-up demand to reach consumers, and so we're hoping that it's the first step in personalization at that scale.
That's absolutely right. And I was thinking about how in the panel side of the game, that how you ask the profiling questions actually creates the potential targeting. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't asked the question, there is no targeting for it.
Right.
And so there's an opportunity for those of us on the sample side of ResTech to think about how profiling impacts what the targets even are in the first place. Which cultures, whether it's called ethnicity or otherwise, actually have the opportunity to have a voice or identity because of how we profile, how we identify people.
I love the way that you positioned that in the panel, right? When you were talking about, we have the opportunity to change the way marketing is seen. And I think a lot of the time, I don't want to make this assumption, but I think in our industry, we're afraid of change. It's human nature. We've done things a certain way, but I liked your positioning because it's opening up new markets. At the end of the day, we're businesses. Right. If we can be more inclusive from a gender perspective, move away from a binary construct, you've just opened up the market.
That's right.
If you open up ethnicity, if you open up education, you're just growing the market, and we're businesses. We want to grow, right? I mean, that's...
We do indeed want to grow.
Right about that one. That's what we're about. I mean, and that's what Think Now has been about from the beginning. On a personal level, of course, I believe diversity and inclusion and being culturally sensitive in marketing is the right thing to do from an ethical perspective. But that's not what we're out there selling our clients. We're selling them, look, this is the future of your consumer. If you want to be relevant in 2030, 2040, 2050, your brand's going to be more inclusive. And we want to build the data that the campaigns of now and the future are fueled by.
I think oftentimes it's absolutely right that, especially from a demographic standpoint, it's a majority future, especially after every birth year from 2008, which means that as our kids become older, that's the expectation, not the exception, is diversity there, because they start at diversity. It's not where they go. And I think that for a lot of us who are in the sample side of ResTech, another change is also realizing that we can impact the customers in what they do, because it's constantly a receiving. We receive bids, we receive inquiries. It's always coming from, say, a brand or an agency to us, and we're supposed to respond. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a moment where we realize as a group that we have a role to play beyond just receiving, and that not only are we the experts in, say, things like how do you ask, let's say, a gender question, but how we create these standards around gender are going to impact how the agency, how the brand actually receives the data. A simple example is we changed at Lucid from just asking a binary question, male and female, to male, female, and other. And what that allows for is the other to have a data set, which before it did not, which sounds really simple, but really impactful, because our customers are inquisitive people. And they're also trying to sell product and sell messaging around the types of customers that they view and see. So once you add other to the equation, suddenly the marketing message could be mailed for each one of those. There may be a segment for other. There may be a marketing campaign or even a unique product build for other that did not exist before because they never saw the data. Yeah. And that extends not just to gender, but for every profiling question that we ask. And there's power in that reality that as we shape these profiling questions, we're shaping how marketers, branding, product people view their customer in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great point because I mentioned on the panel, one of the ways that we've been able to be successful, of course, well, probably the very first way is the talent that we've been able to attract, I think now. For a small to medium-sized business, one of the things I'm proud of is like the tenure that we have. People stay with us. And I think a lot of it has to do with our mission. It resonates with people. And when I brought that up in the panel, I was a little worried, like, hey, telling these businesses to be mission oriented. However, your point makes it that everybody can be mission oriented from that perspective. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, they hold a lot more power than they think.
Yes.
In terms of telling the client, hey, you should ask this question this way. And I have to plug what we did again, right? Like with Insights in Color, one of the things that I'm most proud of is, reaching out to you, having these conversations and putting out a standard. Because I think there's fear out there of like, I don't know how I should ask this question. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, and Lucid was the first company we thought of, was let's put out a standard, let's put out a book. And more importantly than the actual questions is like how to have those sometimes difficult conversations with clients.
Yes.
And the pushback that you're going to receive. So you can find that at insightsincolor.com. We have a whole website where you can download the guide that we work together on. And it was really born out of conversations that we had during the pandemic.
Well, that was one of the best parts of the pandemic for me was just having casual heart-to-heart, human-to-human conversations about what's going on, not just commercial in the business, but as people.
Yeah.
And out of that came a lot of projects and things to work on. But I think most importantly, just a deeper connection relationship between you and I. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. For sure.
So with that, we're going to wrap up our first mini spicy.
Is it already?
Yeah, we did the whole thing. Yeah, it went faster than you thought, right?
Yeah.
But thanks for doing this, Mario. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get back to the conference. We'll make it special.
Let's do it.
All right.
Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. For information on ResTech, our complete list of episodes, and more, visit luc.id/lookingglass.